Olympic cyclists, runners, and cross-country skiers have been taking what look like alcohol shots before races. But they're not alcohol shots. They're actually concentrated shots of 6 pounds worth of broccoli sprouts. The researchers who developed these broccoli sprouts also introduced the use of beet nitrates in sports. Why are athletes taking broccoli sprout shots? Well, broccoli sprouts have high levels of compounds known as isothiocyanates. Say that 5 times fast. Also known as ITCs. You may have heard of sulforaphane, the most famous and well-studied ITC in broccoli.
Sulforaphane. Okay.
Yeah, but we give a lot of leniency to Aussies.
I just want anyone to say it.
Yeah.
ITCs are found to lower blood lactate levels by up to 12% during intense exercise, reducing the amount of muscular burn people feel. They also accelerate recovery. Sprouts have long been popular among the general population too. Promoters call them nature's greatest superfood. They claim that a single handful of them contains up to 100 times the nutrition of a mature vegetable. But are they actually that powerful? If they're that potent, can you eat too many? Decades of high-profile recalls due to salmonella and E. coli have made many people worried about eating these little sprouts. Later in this video, I'm going to share a shocking finding about how none of these outbreaks were due to mold in sprouts, but due to something else. And I'll share how to decrease your risk when eating sprouts. The man I'm interviewing today knows a lot about hype and sprouts. His name is Doug Evans. He used to be an Army 82nd Airborne Division elite paratrooper. When he left the service, he used the little money he had to buy cheap food, junk food like burgers and chicken nuggets. Then his parents died suddenly due to cancer and heart disease. And his aunt had both her feet amputated due to diabetes.
I thought that I was genetically cursed. My brother, when I was 33, had the first of 3 strokes and 2 heart attacks, which were the result of lifestyle, right? But I thought it was genetics. And that's when I had my come to cucumber moment.
Doug moved to the Mojave Desert, a literal food desert where fresh produce was miles away. Having difficulty accessing fresh food motivated him to sprout seeds at home. As you'll find out, he eats a ton of sprouts. They make up half his diet, and he has lived exclusively off sprouts for days.
You do look incredible for 58.
Yeah, 58. I take off my shirt, but it's a mixed audience.
Well, you can take it off if you want. Like, go on. 58. Whoa! Doug, you delicious stallion.
Doug claims he's found a countertop revolution that disrupts the entire industrial food chain for under $1 a day. We're going to dive into the science of sprouts together. That includes looking at their history. During World War I, British soldiers were dying in large numbers from scurvy, a disease of vitamin C deficiency, since fresh fruits and vegetables were difficult to deliver to them. One of our favorite chicks, Harriet Chick, stepped in. She was a British microbiologist and nutritionist. She discovered how sprouting pulses like beans, peas, and lentils, by simply soaking them in water for 24 hours, increased their vitamin C content. Harriet's instructions to sprout lentils were officially adopted by the British military and ended the scurvy epidemic, saving many lives during World War I. By the way, if you enjoy these videos, we'd love it if you subscribe to our channel. That helps us keep bringing on better and better people and providing you even more great information for free. Thank you. We're about to get to the Doug Evans interview. Here's just one more thing. Doug Evans is not a nutritional biochemist, but he has the backing of someone who is, Dr. Jed Fahey. Our friend Simon Hill has interviewed Doug Evans at the same time as Dr. Fahey. Dr. Fahey is perhaps the world's expert on sprouts. He pioneered broccoli sprout research and was an assistant professor at Johns Hopkins Medical School. He directed the Coleman Chemoprotection Center, which studies plant-based compounds that prevent disease. Dr. Fahey has backed up Doug's claims throughout this interview. Here's a clip of Dr. Fahey sharing about the safety of sprouts.
There are no toxicities at all. There are tens of thousands of doses that have been given in clinical studies now.
He estimates a daily upper limit of sprouts to be about 500 micromoles of glucoraphanin, which is a precursor to sulforaphane. That's about 10 cups of mature broccoli or a whole jar of fresh broccoli sprouts. Dr. Fahey notes that people eat this much regularly with no adverse impacts.
So I took 1,500 milligrams of glucoraphanin and
still only have one head. So
I still only have one head.
Thanks so much for coming here, Doug.
Oh, my pleasure, Michelle. What an honor.
You brought all your sprouting equipment. Well, not all. You're traveling, but a lot of it.
I brought enough to give an example of the magic of sprouting.
You must be more crazy about sprouts than anyone else I've met, which is super cool.
What happened is sprouts saved my life. I lived exclusively on sprouts for 30 days at a time. I'm powered by sprouts. I'm built by sprouts. My microbiome is filled with sprout diversity.
Why are sprouts so healthy for us?
Sprouts are, I think, nature's cheat code. Sprouts are up to 100 times more nutritious than the average vegetable. Why isn't everybody sprouting? Well, our food system is predicated on money. So I don't care whether you go to Whole Foods or you go to Airborne or you go to Walmart. The food in there is in a box, in a bag, in a can, and it's pasteurized, and there's additives and preservatives. And maybe they all have a small produce section, but the bulk of what they sell is processed and packaged. There's never been a national or international sprouting company because there was no money behind it. Once I learned about the nutritional powers of sprouts and that you could grow the sprouts at home on your countertop in 5 days without soil, sunshine, or fertilizer, that was the biggest revelation that I ever could have imagined.
You point out this really interesting paper to us.
Yes.
Yeah, can you tell us about it?
I'm happy to get to the paper, but one of the things is that plants are good for you. Fiber is good for you. Yet the dialogue in the media is like, where do you get your protein?
Right.
Yet, I've never met anyone in a developed country that is protein deficient. But I meet people all the time that are constipated and fiber deficient. So it's up to like 95% of the US population is fiber deficient. So sprouts contain soluble and insoluble fiber, and they contain antioxidants and bioflavonoids. And from a food perspective, because they are living foods, they have this whole category of micronutrients, also known as phytochemicals, that are extremely healthy and health promoting, right? So when we look at eating plants, the way I look at sprouts is sprouts are vegetables, where most people, myself included, thought of sprouts as a garnish or a side dish. And now I look at sprouts as vegetables, that you can eat a sprout salad, you can juice the sprouts, you can make purees and hummuses and dips with the sprouts. Like, it's really, you can replace rice with sprouts and pasta with sprouts. There's a lot you can do with sprouts. Then there's this whole category of people who are taking supplements, synthetic multivitamins, protein powders, green powders, and that's all dubious. Like, if you're a technical audience, your viewers are smart, people should be getting their nutrition from food, and sprouts, like a handful of sprouted garbanzo bean with a little bit of broccoli sprouts or alfalfa sprouts, will make sure that you have complete proteins with all 9 essential amino acids in meaningful levels. So that's like, wow. So you get all your protein from it. And when you're plant-based, you're highly efficient in your conversion of ALA into EPA and DHA. So you really aside from vitamin D, which you can go out into the sun, and vitamin B12, you get everything that you need in a sprout forward diet. So that's well known. And if you can replace protein powders and supplements with sprouts, you're affecting a major category of supplementation. But there's thousands of peer-reviewed published papers in the top medical journals on the chemoprotective properties of sprouts, how sprouts can help detoxify benzene and air pollutants from the lungs, how they can mitigate the damage of the plasticides and microplastics that the average person is ingesting, and the regulation of the insulin levels and the diabetics, the scavenging of free radicals, the reducing of oxidative stress, and the chemoprotective properties make them medicinal. Occasionally people ask a question, oh, broccoli sprouts are dangerous because of the toxicity. It's well known cruciferous vegetables are healthy for you. And broccoli is known to be one of the healthiest of the cruciferous vegetables. And broccoli contains isothiocyanates, and particular ones in the glucosinolates. Broccoli has glucoraphanin, right? And glucoraphanin, when mixed with an enzyme called myrosinase, forms sulforaphane. When you chew, crunch, freeze, bite, juice, you actually get this fast-acting sulforaphane. And it's fast-acting because once it mixes like epoxy, you have about 45 minutes to consume that. And that is one of the most chemoprotective agents that opens up the NRF2 pathway. It crosses the blood-brain barrier and upregulates all of these benefits. And so Chris said, well, I stopped eating broccoli sprouts because someone said they were dangerous. So the irrational beliefs and the misinformation around these healing properties is expected. So one of the things is the anti-nutrients are anti-nutrients for the plant's pests. The poison is in the dose. There's no levels that actually are detrimental to the humans within the sprouts. So when you soak a seed, you reduce the enzyme inhibitors, the phytic acid, the lectins, and you trigger a metabolic transformation from seed into vegetable in days. So in the case of broccoli, the broccoli seed has the most glucoraphanin of any stage, right? Up to 100 times more than mature broccoli. When you sprout the seed on day 3, it goes through this metamorphosis and it's a sprout, aka vegetable, that's super nutritious. You asked me about the paper.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I researched and found this white paper, Frontiers in Nutrition, the challenges of designing and implementing clinical trials with broccoli sprouts and turning evidence into public action. There's a paragraph, dose-limiting toxicities, where it talks about participants receiving up to 800 micromoles of glucoraphanin reported no adverse effects. Collectively, in just these 4 reported trials, close to 15,000 doses of broccoli sprout beverages were consumed by study participants. There were no alterations in standard clinical chemistry, liver, kidney function amongst pre-age, post-intervention measures in any of these studies. Based on other reports in the literature, we estimate that 450 micromoles of sulforaphane as a beverage or soup exceeds a tolerable level for healthy individuals, and that a maximum tolerated dose may be 200 micromoles or lower, which is basically 8 ounces. So you can eat 8 ounces of broccoli sprouts with no adverse effects. And I will say, I eat 8 ounces of broccoli sprouts a day, sometimes more, no adverse effects. But if someone were to have 2 ounces, they would be getting the enormous benefit of the broccoli sprouts and the sulforaphane. So they don't even need to go up to the upper levels.
And can you talk more about how these sprouts help us detoxify from environmental contaminants?
Food goes through the stomach, into the small intestine, into the colon. And it's triggering various metabolic processes of digestion. So it's breaking down with acids in the stomach. And then when it gets into the blood, everything has a biochemical effect in the body. So there are certain pathways, and one pathway is called NRF2, NRF2. That upregulates, and it finds on a cellular level what belongs and what doesn't belong, and weak cells, similar to that, what happens with water fasting and autophagy, and what happens in the fasting mimicking diet. The weak cells get basically pulled out, and when you have chemicals and other parts, when the cell is going through a reaction, similar to the hermetic effect in a cold plunge or in a sauna, that you're getting heat shock proteins, that you're basically forcing out anything that doesn't belong in the cell, and that's part of this detoxification process.
Yeah, when I first heard you mention that, I thought that's too good to be true. So I looked it up online, and then indeed I found papers how they studied people in China, and they found that ingestion of sprouts helped them clear out those pollutants from their lungs. And I was
the air pollutants, the benzene. Yeah. So it's a very good question, and there's so many other benefits. Like sprouts are the number one food, in my opinion, for weight management, because sprouts are high fiber, low fat, low calorie. So if you eat a lot of sprouts, you will get full, and they will act as a natural GLP-1 agonist and secrete the GLP-1 peptides so that you'll get the feeling of fullness while having fiber and low calories. So you will naturally lose weight. And since the sprouts are not perverted and distorted, you won't overeat the sprouts. If you look at three types of healing processes: water fasting, fasting mimicking diet, or sprouting. Sprouting is the easiest to do because it has the most flavor, the most texture, and normally when we talk about the whole food plant-based diet, the whole food are typically not whole foods. They're a part of the cauliflower, it's part of the apple tree. You're eating the apple, you're not eating the branch and the trunk. With a sprout, uniquely, you are consuming the entire living organism, the root, the shoot, the endosperm, the embryo, and it's alive. It's enzymatically active. It's sequestering carbon from the air and oxygen, and it's building and growing. So there's a lot of activity. And the sprouts contain the meristematic stem cells of the plants. So this is really like more work and more research needs to be done. But this is like the sprouts could not sprout without going through these processes. And those processes are extremely healthy and healing if you're consuming sprouts as a nutrition source.
And I've heard you talk about how, for example, sprouting lentil seeds will increase the antioxidants and the vitamin C by over 100%.
Yeah.
As we know, with a supplement, you can overdose. You can have too much vitamin C. So with like lentil sprouts, could you overdose on them and have too much vitamin C because they're so concentrated?
I think that lentils are a staple of the plant-based diet around the world. And on day 3, when you sprout a lentil, it now has the vitamin C and the B complexes and the folates, and it's growing. And the color of the lentil represents different antioxidants. Whether it's an orange lentil will have beta carotene, or a green lentil will have chlorophyll. This is very nutritious. But again, the lentils are more calorically dense, and so you're not going to overeat the lentils anyway. And high dose vitamin C, in terms of healing, there's a lot of Linus Pauling and a lot of research on that. You can't get high dose vitamin C other than intramuscular or intravenous injections, because the way it's processed as a food, that you would fill up and burst before you'd even get even remotely close to the upper limit of vitamin C.
So what percent of your current diet is sprouts?
Presently about 50%.
Do you know anybody else who eats as many sprouts as you do?
No.
Okay, so you're like an N of one here.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Posner eats a lot of sprouts. Mm-hmm. Red Foo eats a lot of sprouts. Mm-hmm. My family eats a lot of sprouts. Brian Clement at Hippocrates, he eats a lot of sprouts, and they serve a lot of sprouts there. Most people, again, think of sprouts as a garnish or a side dish. For me, when I realized that you could take a quarter cup of seeds and fill up an entire jar of sprouts in 5 days.
With just like water, basically.
Yeah, without soil, sunshine, or fertilizer. Yeah, a quarter cup of seeds will get 5 cups of sprouts in 5 days. When I realized that, and the jars and the kits pay for themselves so quickly, I built a whole sprout garden, with multiple jars. And I'm just pouring a whole jar into my salad. And then I'm adding tahini dressing, and I'm adding some seaweed. And it's so tasty.
Yeah, and I'm guessing the only supplement you take is like B12 and D.
Yeah, no, I don't do D. D, I go outside. I live in the desert. I'll take my shirt off in a city environment. I want to get sun every day. D, I do not supplement. And B12, I'll supplement once or twice a month. I'll take a sublingual.
I see. And we just looked at your labs, your numbers, and they look phenomenal.
Yeah, I did the Clearly AI with Dr. Brian Herman at Avant, and the coronary calcium scan, and numbers are phenomenal. People say, show the receipts.
Yes.
I'm doing another podcast, and after that I'm going to publish my receipts.
Very nice. And what kind of exercise do you get? Because I know in the comments people are going to say, oh, you can't have energy,
Oh, I've already done 300 push-ups today. So I do about 100,000 push-ups a year. I run between 5K and 15K a day. And then I do air squats, and I do some handstands, and I'm just active. I think that I'm in the best physical, mental, spiritual shape of my life.
And people, a lot of them are really scared about sprouts because there have been sprout recalls in the past, and you're growing them in such a moist environment, it seems like it's easy for them to get contaminated. How do you respond to those safety concerns?
I published a white paper, and you can link it, with Dr. Jed Fahey and Jack Smilovoth, who's a data scientist from the Netherlands. And we studied foodborne illness for 25 years, a quarter century. We looked at illnesses, hospitalizations, outbreaks, and deaths. And what we concluded from the data was that sprouts are safe, and they're very safe. What happens is there's no lobbying behind sprouts. There's no advertising behind sprouts. And since sprouts were so uncommon in their consumption and perception, that it became newsworthy to talk about the sprouts as a distraction for what was really happening. So if you were to rationalize the data in cases per million, probably 10 or 11 foodborne illness cases for sprouts. There's 20 for lettuce, right? And there's 80 for meat, chicken, and fish. So sprouts are safer than lettuce and much safer than animal products. I suspect that what caused these recalls was poor sanitation, non-organic produce, sewer sludge, not wearing gloves, and contaminating the sprouts with the chicken or the salmonella and the like. So homegrown sprouting, when you're taking seeds, like the sprouting company, these are the organic broccoli seeds from the sprouting company. These are certified organic, tested for pathogens, tested for high germination rate. And then if you were to take these and you rinse them and then you soak them and you're using them in a controlled environment of your jar, you are controlling so many of the variables, where in the commercial growing or the restaurants, the fast food, like they have no idea what they're doing. No idea. So this is something that, patient, heal thyself, and be aware of everything that you eat.
I'm going to interject here to say that there are some safety concerns about sprouts. The most significant danger that sprouts pose is bacterial contamination, and the source of that is not what you think. First, let's understand the magnitude of the problem. Between 2000 and 2020, at least 53 sprout-associated outbreaks were reported to the US CDC. The majority of these outbreaks were caused by Salmonella and E. coli. The FDA classifies sprouts as a high-risk food. They recommend that children, the elderly, pregnant women, and the immunocompromised never eat raw sprouts. Here's what shocked me. FDA research shows that the majority, if not all, sprout illness outbreaks trace back to the seed itself having pathogens. There are basically 0 illnesses or deaths caused by moldy sprouts.
I still see people mistaking their beautiful, healthy root systems for mold. Root hairs, or cilia, are these fuzzy little shoots that come off of the roots of plants in order to aid in water absorption. Mold, on the other hand, is actually a type of fungus that grows when specific conditions are met and will cause problems in your microgreens.
While moldy sprouts should be thrown out, the real danger is what you can't see. The outbreaks were from sprouts that looked and smelled normal, but contained millions of invisible bacteria. How does a sprout seed get contaminated? That happens before you even buy it. Bacteria like Salmonella can become embedded in the cracks and crevices of the seed coat while the seed is in the field or during processing. Because bacteria are inside the seed's dry structure, they can survive for months in a dormant state. Yes, even when stored in your home. Even perfect growing conditions can't protect you if the sprout seed is contaminated. So home sprouting isn't a guaranteed safety net compared to store-bought. In fact, commercial sprouters are required by the FDA to test what's known as the irrigation water, the water that drains from the sprouts when they grow them. They have to check the irrigation water for pathogens. This is a step that most home growers don't do. So, to ensure sprout safety, get your seeds from a reliable source.
We have 2 out of 3 Americans that are overweight or obese. We have 100 million people that are diabetic or pre-diabetic. And one of the greatest indicators of short life is going to be being overweight. If someone's overweight, their likelihood to become obese, to get diabetic, to have heart disease. And I can just tell you, those people are not eating sprouts. Like if they're talking about sprout safety, it's a distraction. It's a non-issue.
When you're growing your own sprouts, how do you know when they've become a little too slimy and gross and they're no longer edible? Or in your own sprouting system, it basically is non-issue?
It's a non-issue. I mean, what happens is you have to grow the sprouts, right? So you soak them, and we have an app. And so they get to use the app. The app has push notifications and reminders and guides people. So if someone's following the directions and they're using, look, one of the things is you can get seeds anywhere, right? But if you're getting seeds from the bulk bin, dubious origins versus the guaranteed to sprout seeds that we have, if you get the guaranteed to sprout seeds and you're using the equipment, it's a smooth process. It's a non-issue. But if you go to the supermarket and you're buying, sprouts that could be a week or 2 week old, they could be slimy. But I haven't experienced, and we have 10,000 plus people, 12,000 people sprouting. Like, that's not an issue. Some people confuse root hairs with mold, and that's just the sprout being dry So on the root, it's springing off little root hairs because they want more surface area. And as soon as you rinse them, they go away.
Like there has to be some downside to consuming them.
You can have really epic poops.
So that triggered me.
You're pushing one of her buttons.
Oh,
Did you like a big poop?
Chris needs to take over now. Okay, well.
Chris likes big poops.
There's a big inside story about it. I was interviewing a microbiome doctor at Stanford, and I asked him, do you talk to your patients about poops? And he said, yes, of course, that's my job. And here comes Tony coming down the stairs. You're in the episode now, Tony.
Oh, great.
So,
Just in time for poops.
Yeah.
so in that episode, it was a fantastic episode. It was a doctor from the Stanford Microbiome Lab, Sean Spencer, and one of the best episodes we've ever done. And I asked him, do you talk to your patients about poop? And he said, oh, all the time. And then we started telling poop jokes. Meanwhile, I noticed she was over there with her hands covering her face, hiding. So I swung the camera over to her to
Okay, well, besides those...
and ever since then on the chat, we have a chat with 4 of us.
Oh, Chris is outing us.
Yeah, and 3 of us like to tell poop jokes.
Yes, he does it.
Did you upload pictures of your poop?
No.
Don't tempt him!
No, we're not that far yet.
But she did say in the episode that if you want a great poop donor, I would be the one. So...
He would be perfect, and at sometime or another, if I need one, I would get one from him.
A poop photo?
No, a poop donor.
For an FMT.
Poop donation,
Fecal
an
matter
FMT.
transplant.
Oh, okay. Because I have to say, I'm so proud of my poops. I want to be
Me too.
posting them on Instagram.
Me too. Every morning I come down and I report.
yeah, he comes
So I have a poop scale of
You
1 to
and-
10. And I deal in ACEs, and I come down and say 10.
I know exactly what he's talking about every day.
I suggest you and Chris have a poop off, like a...
It's not competitive. I'm just happy to have my own high quality poops.
Okay, so that's one down/upside of sprouts.
Yeah, I mean, if you're unfamiliar with it, the microbiome, you might experience some moderate flatulation, also known as farts, right? So you could have that.
You're pushing her buttons again. She's about to come unglued.
Oh no.
It's okay.
Oh my God.
It's okay.
You didn't just pass one, did you?
No. We should add in like a sound effect, like a whoopee cushion.
But no, I think sprouts are all wins.
And tell us how sprouts are also good for planetary health and can help solve food insecurity.
It is so amazing that the most nutrient-dense food on the planet is also the lowest cost. If you can take seeds and get seeds and sprouting equipment out to people, they could be growing organic vegetables in days for under $1 a serving. And if the normal distribution of produce requires refrigeration and is traveling thousands of miles across the country, like that's burning fossil fuel, right? Just burning fossil fuel. When if you were to ship sprouts, they're dry and they're light and they have a long shelf life, and then the individual consumer is growing them, they're using less resources. Just the whole thing is just less. And if you look at the water requirements, and one of the main reasons why they couldn't put out the California wildfires is because they didn't have all the water, right? They didn't have enough water. And a lot of the water was being driven towards animal agriculture. So when you're growing wheat, corn, and soy for animal agriculture, 90% of those calories coming from those crops is going to waste. And it takes 1,500 gallons of water to grow 1 pound of beef. And you could grow a pound of sprouts with 1 gallon of water. So the water requirements are 1/1500th of beef. So there's so many reasons, and it's fast, and it's nutritious, and it's local. Like, if you were to look at the whole life cycle analysis, it's unbelievable, the advantages of it. But the big thing is it's such a slam dunk that it's not a photo finish. You know, any intelligent person can validate this hypothesis.
And what happened when you went on only sprouts for 30 days?
Wow, I had so much energy. Like, I would have to set my alarm to tell me what time to go to sleep. Like, I just felt so good.
Then how come you don't stay 100% sprouts all the time?
I travel quite a bit. I also have a family, and I like fruit also. You know, fruit is very seductive. The colors, the flavors, and when there's local organic fruit in season, like, I eat it. It's like, it's not a religious thing that says, oh, I can only eat sprouts. Like, I want to be able to live. And so the fruits contain different antioxidants, different nutrients, and I think they're complementary to the sprout diet.
And can you tell us more about, I know your family history,
Yeah.
they haven't been that healthy, but they were
No.
eating very differently from you.
Yeah, I think what happened is for the first 33 years of my life, I ate anything. And then when I watched my aunt die of diabetes and my mother die of stomach cancer, and my father die of heart disease, I thought I was genetically cursed.
Right, and were they relatively young when they got these?
My mom was 66, right? My aunt was, I think, 62. My father was 77. And, you know, they say heart disease is the silent killer because my father looked super healthy, except, you know, the plaque gets you.
Yeah, well, you're definitely changing the narrative.
Oh, 100%. And I feel good. I mean, the most important thing is I feel good.
And can you tell us more about the sprouting system you've developed? I'd
Yeah.
love to learn more about it.
Yeah, so one of the things is I want to grow a lot of sprouts.
Yeah.
So I designed a jar that was larger,
Yeah.
almost twice as large as a mason jar. We did these little detents, so you could even hold it,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that was very deliberate. And then a lot of people were sprouting using cheesecloth. And the cheesecloth actually can collect biofilm and
Yeah,
exudate
it's yucky.
and turns brown, which is the bacteria. And then the plastic filters I don't like. So this was designed where the only thing that was touching the sprouts was glass and stainless steel. And the other thing is, if you notice, this jar is straight and the threads are on the outside. This way, when you drain it, all the water goes outside. The normal jar has a kind of a bell in it. The neck shrinks down, which is easier for them to make, but it can collect water inside. So I really designed this to get larger, more sanitary, better airflow, better air exchange, better drainage.
Can you tell us about the different types of seeds?
I just have a few here.
Yeah.
But I have radish seeds, and where broccoli seeds have glucoraphanin,
Yes.
radish seeds have glucoraphanine, which is a different glucosinolate. And they also have a spice. And that spice is extremely healthy because they burn.
They do burn when I eat them.
Yeah. And so then we have some lentils here. And clover is just a very mild sprout. It's great for kids. It's great for beginners. And then these high glucoraphanin broccoli seeds, you know, reminds me of the story when I started to sprout and I was writing the sprout book and I was talking about broccoli sprouts and sulforaphane. I bought some seeds online from many places. I sent them out to a lab, and when they tested, I wanted to know how much glucoraphanin was in every seed, and one of the ones that came back from a major supplier had no glucoraphanin in it. So I sent it to another lab where they sequenced the DNA, and they said, oh, it's in the brassica family, but it's not broccoli. And so all these seeds, some will look the same. So that made me go on a quest to find not only broccoli seeds that were really broccoli seeds, but broccoli seeds that had the highest levels of sulforaphane, because many people are consuming the sulforaphane for heart health and detoxifying the lung health, as well as the chemoprotective.
Are you planning on doing any more scientific endeavors in the future regarding sprouts?
Yeah, I really see the future of sprouts being replacement for supplementation. I'd love to collaborate with Dr. Alan Goldhammer at True North on doing a study.
Is there anything I didn't ask about that you want to share about sprouts?
I think you covered it all. You're really terrific interviewer, Michelle.
Thank you.
Holy cow.
I appreciate it.
Well, if she's so great an interviewer, why didn't she ask you about this chick?
Oh.
History of the Lister Institute.
By Harriet Chick. Have you ever heard of Harriet Chick?
I have. This is
You have?
Tell
I
us.
have.
Tell us about
I
her.
have never met anybody who has heard of Harriet Chick.
Well, have you known anyone who just studies the history of sprouting and nutrition?
No, this is what baffles me is I'm a physicist and all physicists are obsessed with history. We all are.
Yeah.
The making of the atomic bomb. No nutrition scientist cares about history. If they did, they would know that Atkins was a very late comer in the low-carb movement, that Vince Gironda came up with the steak and egg diet in the 50s and made it so popular, and Carlton Fredericks in the 60s, low-carb, and the Cutters in 1910. They just don't know their history. So what do you know about Harriet Chick?
Not much. I mean, her thing was revised for today because it's the war against chronic illness. This is like...
But she was the sprout chick.
Yeah. But her thesis was what we're experiencing today. You know, very Hippocrates oriented, you know, food be thy medicine.
Yeah.
Sprouts are the medicine. So it's very aligned. And I think she influenced Ann Wigmore and Victoris and Brian Clement.
Wow, you do know your history. The thing that impressed me the most is she formulated the rations for the World War I soldiers for the British Empire. They didn't know about vitamin C yet. Scurvy, pellagra, beriberi. They just knew if they ate a wide variety of things. So she sent peas, lentils, and beans to the front line dried and had the cooks sprout them, and that's what they ate. And then they didn't get beriberi and...
Yeah, and scurvy. Well, Captain Hook would give his pirates sprouts because when they were going on the long, pirate runs, you know, they were getting scurvy. So by sprouting on the ship, they didn't get scurvy.
Amazing.
So he knew about sprouts being powerful.
Yeah, well, they knew their vegetables. They needed to have the vegetables.
And then we had to wait a couple of centuries for you to come along.
Yep.
Harriet was made Dame of the British Empire. She founded the British Nutrition Society. She was seen on the subway at 99. She gave a keynote address at 98. She lived to 102. So the sprouts didn't kill her.
Yeah, she was a full-on sproutarian centenarian.
Okay. Oh, it fell off pretty well.
Look at the camera and smile.